And once again, happy 2019, everyone. This is JJ Flazanes. Thank you for downloading today's episode. It's going to be a short, quick, and sweet welcome in the new year of 2019.
You know, that's kind of like my second marriage was short, quick, and sweet.
Ba-bum. And so that was Doug Sandler. And we also have Michael Neeley with us.
Hello there.
And we're going to be talking about sort of the practices that we did this New Year's Eve into the new year. And just as a way for people to, you know, if you're thinking about how do I really do this new year differently, and how if I'm resistant to certain ideas, like for instance, a resolution. You know, I'm not a fan of resolution, and I'm honestly not a fan of goals. And I just want to use today as an intention to find the energy that you need that's different and new for 2019. So I just want to, I'm with Doug and with Michael, and we spent New Year's Eve together, and we did a practice that I've now been doing, oh goodness, for probably 6 or 7 years. And it's called Reflections, and it's a list of 6 different questions. The questions stay the same every year, and it's really taking into account what's happened in the last year, sort of how to appreciate it, what you learned from it, what you'll do different moving forward. And what I thought would be interesting to share with you guys to have you start thinking of, a lot of you may have not done anything conscious or intentional, and you maybe went to a party, or you were with family, or you fell asleep at 9 o'clock, and you know, and you may have sort of a lackluster about this new year. And I'm not necessarily here to infuse, you know, that you get super excited, but maybe a clean slate, or maybe talk about some of the resistance that people have to, and how do we overcome making each day of this new year and every month for the rest of this entire year a new opportunity. So I think I'm going to pass the mic to Doug first. And this would be your first, this be your first New Year's doing something like what we did last night?
This was my first New Year's that I was actually outside of the Eastern time zone. So I would say that's a pretty big shift. By the way, the questions have been the same, but the players' names have been changed to protect the innocent. So we're going to tell you that right up front. Yeah, this is the first time I played this game. I usually used, I think I was probably one of those people that was oftentimes asleep around 9:30, 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve, woke up for the stroke of midnight, and then by 12:30 we would be completely done. So, yeah, I thought it was a great practice, going through and listing some of the things that were the biggest influences in my life in 2018, positive and negative, and then the biggest changes that I made in my life from 2018, and what I see is the intentions that I'm going to set in 2019. I'm looking forward. This is going to be a great new year. I'm really having fun with this so far.
And before last night, did you do any kind of intention setting, conscious awareness about reflecting on the past and what you had learned? Have you done that before?
No, I had never gone back and looked at the things that had happened in the previous year. I always looked forward to what was going to be going on in the upcoming year. So no, I never reflected back and thought, wow, boy, that year was totally fucked up. Unless I actually look back to the last 3 years of goal setting that I've gone, and I know that JJ, you said you're not a big goal setter, and that's all I knew was goal setting. You know, that's all I didn't feel I was any good at it. And looking at my goals from 2016, 2017, and then into 2018. It's amazing how disappointed you could be if you actually looked at the specific things on the list and said, did I accomplish those things? No, I didn't accomplish many of the things that were on the list, but there were a whole set of new things that I was able to accomplish. So I tend to be I'm a very optimistic guy, but in goal setting, I have a pessimistic approach to it, because it's like, while those things, I tended to linger on the things that I didn't accomplish and not focus on the things that I did accomplish in that year. And I think that's a mistake. I think you have to celebrate and reward yourself for the wins that you've had in your life.
So I'm very curious, and by the way, we are enjoying New Year's Day brunch together. So in case you hear any clanking or Michael adding salt or pepper to his meal, which happened during his podcast that we recorded last night, which is something to whine about, if you want to hear some really entertaining, nonsensical shit.
Well, you're going to have to wait until 2020 when the first episode airs.
Then you can go to Something to Whine About, one of his newest shows. But so I'm curious then, Doug, if you have a pessimistic attitude about goal setting, you asked me last week, should we do some goal setting for the new year?
That's all I know. It's all I know. It's like, what do you do? Like, what? what are the things that you're supposed to do from one year to the next? And the standby is, well, what goals do you want to have in the upcoming year? And I liked how you helped me rephrase that. You said, what are your intentions?
I said, no, I don't want to do goal setting. I don't think goal setting is, because just for the reason that you said, a lot of times we have this idea about what it is we think we want, or we think we need, or we have to attain in order to feel successful or happy. And definitely, hopefully all of you listening, no matter what show that you're listening to this episode on, my newest wave of inspiration is to want people to connect to their intuition and to allow better things to come into your life than, let's look at our relationship, right? I didn't think I was going to be manifesting a new person. And once I surrendered and allowed universe and God and source and creator and intuition and everything just sort of like let go and see what showed up, very quickly I got exactly what I asked for. But if you would have asked me what that looked like, I wouldn't have told you it was you. So I prefer intention setting instead of goal setting, because I want to co-create with the universe. I want to co-create with people around me, and I want it to be revealed what the best use of my energy is, and the opportunities and the people and the messages that are coming to me.
So you know how I like to break things down into simple science. So explain the difference between a goal and an intention, so that those that are maybe like me, when I heard that first from you, I'm like, I don't really know what the difference is. So can you share what the difference between, in your mind, what an intention is and what a goal is?
Well, the way that a lot of people do goal setting, and that I've done goal setting, again, is hitting certain numbers. It's saying, I want this thing about my business. It's being very specific. I'll give you an example of, I can look back at every year I would do some kind of practice, and sometimes it was goal setting, and sometimes it was goal setting combined with the appreciation of what had happened the year before. And so even though I might not have hit my financial goals or my business goals or whatever, I would always look back and say, well, what did happen, and where did things unfold or go in a new direction? But like you said, when you put something on a piece of paper that I think sets you up to be stuck to hitting and focusing on this one thing that may not be, Garth Brooks has a song about unanswered prayers. Like, you don't know what is your best use of intention. Who knew that you and I would be doing a customer service-based training together, and look where that's going. And, there's so many opportunities that come to us that we miss because we're so super focused, blindsided on one thing that we think we want or we need or it's best for us, that we miss other opportunities. So for me, a goal is, I think, somewhat of a random idea or belief about what we think we want or we need that is so ultra specific that it blocks a possibility of something even better and unexpected that you, on a frequency level, will miss because you're not looking for it. You're not open to it.
One thing I'd like to add to that, JJ, is the difference between a lot of times when we set goals is we set a goal for something we think is going to bring us this feeling that we desire. And so if you start with, what are the feelings I want to have this year? You can set an intention that I want to be more peaceful. But if you're doing it from a goal perspective, you might go, well, I want to buy a home that is sitting, on the cliffs overlooking the ocean or something, because that's peaceful to me. But that becomes the goal, as opposed to what else could possibly create this feeling that you want to have.
Okay. But part of the universal definition that we have, it's been so ingrained, at least in my mind as an entrepreneur. Now, you approach it from a slightly different perspective, and respect where both of you come from, but the perspective is a little bit more esoteric, a little bit more woo in your approach.
No.
Okay, well, that's oftentimes what I see. So when I say I approach this from more of a universal look at this, I look at this and say, okay, specific, attainable, measurable, all of the things that you were
smart
taught,
goals.
right? Your SMART goals, all of these things that you were taught as a kid going through business school or wherever, at your jobs, that your boss would say, yeah, what's your specific goal? Is it measurable? Is it attainable? Is it realistic? What's the time frame that you have to be able to reach that? And it's like, can peaceful fit into that? And maybe it could, but I have to untrain all of those tapes that are going on in my head.
I think for me, where it fits in, because I'm with you as well, and I do believe in SMART goals, but I think first, the challenge is a lot of people start with the SMART goal and not the intention. And I think if you start with the intention, okay, so if my intention is this year I want to have more relaxation in my life, well, then I look at, okay, well, what can I do? What creates relaxation for me currently that I know? And then I might have to look at, okay, what can I do to create more of that? And then I could set a goal. Okay, if I know that more relaxation for me means that I need to work less but still make as much money, then I might set some specific goals that will help me to attain that, resulting in what my intention is. And I'm still open to, there could be stuff that I don't know about, like JJ was saying, that the universe will unfold for me.
Right. You said the other day, as you were so proud of yourself for being such a great money manifester, then you realize that maybe you're just a pawn in my, you want to tell that?
Right. I mean, no, I like it. You tell the story.
Well, no, you said, I realized the other day that, man, she wants to make more money, so she manifested me. Like, I'm just supporting her manifestation. I was like,
It was great. I looked at my strength and my zone of genius, and while it's not necessarily in execution, it's more in the deliverable. It's in the incoming, the manifestation of something. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's what I'm good at, but that's not really what I was focused on. That's kind of something that you want. And I'm like, maybe I'm just a part of your plan.
Yes, you are a part of my plan. You are like a complete manifestation on every level of all the things I didn't even ask for, because again, I wasn't focused on getting it from somebody else other than my marriage. So I didn't put podcaster, entrepreneur on the list, right? But ideally, and that's obviously what is the best use of my energy. So back to intention setting, the difference for me, as well, Michael put it very well, that, and he also talked about, here's where it's not woo at all. The facts are that anything you want, this is very law of attraction, the only reason why you want anything that you want is because you think you'll feel better when you have it. If you dial back every reason why you need a new client, why we need a different house, why we want to have this, was because we think we'll feel better. Every single flippin' thing. And the reality of it is that you have to be in vibrational alignment to receive it in the first place, or to even notice it. So you can get there emotionally way before you ever get the physical manifestation of it. Right. So, and that's for usually some of the bigger things, like the smaller things. I had an instant manifestation the other day when we were taking a walk down the street, and it was such perfect divine timing. Like everything played out so perfectly, where we were taking a walk and we went past a house that had a pomegranate tree, and the house was being redone. And we'd seen this house before with these pomegranates, and I always wanted to pick one, and then we just never did it. And it was so, we walked past the house again, and I'm like, oh, where's that pomegranate tree? And I said, go get that. Can you jump up and get that? Because Doug is 6'4", and there was a little ledge, and so he could get it. But we spent a good 5 minutes finagling this pomegranate and out of the tree. And by the end of having it, I realized it was probably old and probably not very good. So I threw it back, and we continued walking. Then we get to another house that has this tree that is overwhelmingly full of lemons, fresh, ready to pick, ready to use lemons. And I went, oh my God, I want those lemons. And not even 5 seconds later, the owner pulls into the driveway. She looks over at me. She opens the door. She walks out. And she says, do you want some? And I said, yes, I want some. But that couldn't have happened. And she pulls a bag out of her car and starts picking lemons with me and says, you guys are welcome to have lemons anytime. But it was one of those, we often overlook these little instant manifestations because we think it's just a lemon. But it was literally, I had the thought, and instantaneously I got exactly what I wanted. And so part of intention setting for me and using law of attraction is to say, what do I want my life to feel like? What results do I want? How I get those results is where I think goal setting shuts you off from different possibilities. I can say, I want to work less and I want to play more. I've already set up a schedule. So how that would be, like, I want to, since you have entered my life, I have worked less and I've made more. I used to work on the weekends. I worked in the evenings. I worked a little bit more during the day because I didn't have somebody in the next room who'd come over and distract me in any positive ways. I didn't have anyone to like chat with in the middle of the day who was in the next room. So here again is an intention of, I want to work less. I want to make more. I want to have more fun, and I want to commit to the practices that I'm doing, and boom, it's happened. So moving forward, you can still say I want to make more money, but it's how do you want to make more money? Saying I want to make more money doesn't mean you're not going to kill yourself in the process or be miserable or wreck a marriage or wreck your health. But being intention, saying, I would like to find leverage. I would like to be able to make more money, have more fun, and find a way that will allow me 6 hours a day of play or whatever. Like, that's when you get concrete about the stuff you want. and then you let what you're doing and other opportunities come in to show you what's possible that you may not even be aware of.
I think that's spot on with that, by the way, JJ. But I think the challenge that some people experience, and I've seen this happen, is they think that just setting that intention is going to make things happen, and they skip over the action step.
The action step. Yeah. Without action, it's like all fucked up. You're not going to ever accomplish anything if you don't take action, which is crazy to me that somebody says, well, I prayed on that. I'm like, well, yeah, but you got to actually take action on the prayer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the person who says, I'm going to win the lottery and doesn't go out and buy a lottery ticket. You got to take action. And so that's where I think that some people make the mistake. Most don't. I would venture to say that probably a lot of people realize, I still need to take action. But if you're setting your intention, this is where I think it's important to stay open to what the universe presents to you, and still, in the meantime, think, okay, what actions can I take to bring this more, into my world today?
Well, I think you're bringing up an awesome point that a lot of people who listen to this show understand, but people who are opposed to these shows don't understand, is they think there's a balance and there is an alignment that I think is needed to make it all work. And the balance is vibrational frequency, emotion, peace, centeredness. That is half of it. And the other half is acting on inspired thought when you're in alignment. The problem is that most entrepreneurs, most business owners, and most people, quite honestly, are running around taking a lot of action, completely not in alignment, completely in fear and anxiety, completely unhappy and not inspired at all, and have no idea that they're really seeking something they could attain right now if they took 5 minutes to actually sit and deal with themselves.
Kind of like Scurry on Who Moved My Cheese. Just running all the way around, just not even thinking about it, just taking action, 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 action. Boy, I must be accomplishing something because, man, am I busy.
Right. So what Doug is referring to is Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. Mm-hmm. And we had the Best Friends Forever, our corporate client that we were working with and still are, the people coming to our training in December had to read the book before. And for anyone who's out there, it's a great book. It's less than a 2-hour read. And if you're a fast reader, it's an hour read. And it's called Who Moved My Cheese. And there are 4 players, Hem, Haas, Scurry, and Sniff, and it's about personality types and how people act in the world. And so what I have rejected in the entrepreneurial space and in the business world is a lack of connection and alignment. What I don't like about the woo-woo side is the lack of action. So it's about the combination. You have to have both. It's the difference of, and Law of Attraction will say that you act when you're in alignment and inspired, and when you know that it's coming from that place of divine timing, alignment, and it's just something that you can't not do. I think too many people are disconnected, taking action based on anxiety and fear, thinking that, if I do this, I'll feel better, and then this will happen, and this will happen, so I have to make sure that gets done. And I want to encourage everybody who's listening to, if that's you, because that was me, I recognize that I was talking about Law of Attraction, and then I wasn't living it. And if that is you, there are ways to check yourself. And part of the intention for me for 2019, it already started in 2018 with Doug, was to commit to a schedule that supports my alignment, that supports my consciousness, that supports my centeredness, that supports my balance. That includes, and I think we've talked about this on the show before, on Mondays and Wednesdays, Doug and I go to the beach. And first we have a new practice that we're doing that was on episode 111, Abundance and Intuition on Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. And you all heard it was Mae McCarthy. It's the 4-step process. And it's about, we've got it down to like less than 20 minutes. We do this process, then we're going to go exercise at the beach and meditate. That is every Monday and Wednesday morning. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we go to the gym. Every Friday night, we have our date night. And every day that I'm not out with clients in the morning, we're doing this other intentional program. So, and then we're going dancing twice a month. We're going to Agape once a month and having brunch. We have travel time. We have fun time. So there's the balance for me. My intention is to create a life I love so that I can be efficient. And what that looks like is exactly what I just laid out. So if you're someone who wants to do your life differently, and maybe you work a 9-to-5 job and you can't really control your schedule so much, but maybe there's a opportunity to put in 1 day a week or 2 days a week of something that's really fun, that lights you up, that is something that maybe exercise. Michael introduced us to ecstatic dance. So on New Year's Eve, Michael, why don't you tell everybody about ecstatic dance here in Santa Cruz?
Wow. Yeah. So I actually interviewed one of the people who was the DJ last night for Ecstatic Dance, Daniel Molnar, and that episode will be coming out on Consciously Speaking soon. And he puts it so much better than I can. But basically, I think ecstatic dance is really about being in your body, moving in a way that's totally you. It's not like you're trying to do anything in particular, but through this movement and connectedness, it's almost like a meditation. You're going inward, and you're doing it in a setting. For me, when it's typically a 2-hour session, and I bring 4 T-shirts because I sweat like crazy, and I keep changing T-shirts because I soak them. So it's a workout, it's a meditation, it's all of this, and it's done in community. And so part of it, you're dancing alone, but you may connect with somebody and dance together and do some contact improv of it, as it's called, and it's a pretty wild experience. Last night was a bit different than the norm.
And Doug, what was your experience on ecstatic dance?
I had a fun time. I thought it was interesting, for somebody that I've spent the last 30 years as a guy that's behind the DJ console, and I'm used to hip hop and current pop and music that I'm familiar with. So to see the expression from songs, people dancing to songs that I had never heard before, for the most part, I thought that was a little unusual. I don't think that it was bad. It was one of those things where I was into it. I felt a little self-conscious at first. I think probably the first couple of times you go, you must feel self-conscious, and because everybody is just in everybody else's space, but not being, overly intrusive. But it's a different experience.
We are in Santa Cruz right now. So for anyone that doesn't know Santa Cruz, well, how would you describe Santa Cruz for those who don't live in California?
Santa Cruz is very bohemian. It's very eclectic, and it's a town full of tree huggers and hippies and people that are a little bit out there in many ways, and a lot of woo-woo in this town. And so you get a big mix.
Yeah, well, it was fun. It was a good practice for me to check in with, am I doing this to fit in, or am I honoring where I am with this, and to notice the different music. So I wanted to share ecstatic dance because it's new and fun and crazy, but also because it's something that, if that's something that lights you up, having an outlet to do it. My brother was telling us yesterday on Skype about what is it called? The break room? My dad was telling us that in Pennsylvania, and I'm sure they're everywhere, but places where you can go like break things, like you smash glasses and have you heard that? I haven't ever heard of that. And of course, I'd love to tell everyone that I know, especially people who told me that they should do more of that. Great anger management, but if that's something that you need, then do that. And then my cousin was telling us yesterday that she had done what is it called?
Not the maze, but what is it?
Escape room.
Escape room.
Have you done an escape room?
I have, yeah, down in L.A. when I was down at your event. Last time.
I don't think that is like a therapy? I think that's more of a game.
It is, but what it is takes you completely out of your comfort zone. You're doing it as a group and as a community, so you have to have team building skills and communication, and it's a rush and a thrill that is a lot healthier than drugs and alcohol and food, to kind of get you into, again, a new, like, it expands your comfort zone, and people find it really fun and unique. I haven't done it. I would love to do it, so we can research that, but I'm throwing ideas out there because you might say, well, I don't like dancing, or I don't like meditation, or I'm sure if you figure out what you need and what you like, you can find a way to add it into your life. And I would say ease up, everybody, on some goal setting. If goal setting hasn't worked for you in the past, if, like Doug said, he's normally a positive person, but goal setting kind of
when it discourages you, it's like, oh shit, another year's coming. It's like, okay, well, what am I not going to be able to do this year? But when you look back, you see all of the things that you've been able to accomplish. Just wasn't in the same clothing that it was intended to be in.
But you said prior to this year, you had done goals for the following year, but never looked back on the year before.
Yeah. What I mean is that the coming year, I would set goals that if I looked back to the previous year, I wasn't able to accomplish the goals that had set out.
Michael, what about you? Before last night, what kind of practices have you been doing on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day?
Yeah, typically I'll do a vision board, which is kind of intentional. I mean, it's the difference between goal setting. A vision board is all about intention. So we would go through tons of magazines and clip out pictures that represented a feeling that I wanted to have, or could be, like if I wanted to do a scuba trip, then I might get a picture of a scuba diver or something like that could fill out this vision board, because then it's something to keep mentally looking at throughout the year. Keep it in a prominent place, where you can see it regularly, to keep that vision going. So vision boarding has always been important to me. But I also want to add a little piece to what just you and Doug had said there, and that is whether you set an intention or if you still choose to set goals. I think it's so important to write them down. And sometimes it's as simple as writing it down and tuck it in a drawer and put it away. And just the writing process kind of plants that seed and plants it not just in your mind and body, but in the body of the universe, which you're connected to. And so that often, I've done this before where I've written down and I've forgotten what I wrote down. And then I look back at it later and go, oh, wow, got that, did it, check it off.
What did you think of last night of our putting it on paper and then burning it?
I thought that was really cool. And one of the neat things that I've realized I haven't done as much is reflecting back on the last year, which makes total sense, too, because if we don't look at our history, we're destined to repeat it. And so to look at what you did last year, and specifically some of these questions about like what didn't work, what were your disappointments, failures, to then go, oh, yeah. Well, okay, and then look a little deeper, like, well, why was that? Where did I drop that ball? And then maybe that will help when you move forward into the next year of like, okay, don't want to do that again. So I like that.
So some of the questions, I'll read the questions to everybody. And it's funny because when I filled this out this year, the number one question I filled out last because I kept trying to figure out is like what that was, who that was. Is it one person? Is it one thing? But question number one is who or what was the biggest influence for you in that year, so in 2018. Question two is what were your biggest disappointments, letdowns, and fallbacks in 2019? And I know some of you came up with like one thing, but I actually could make them three. Like disappointments was one, letdown was another, and fallback was another. And so I just gave myself permission to outline and bring forward the things that I don't want to not acknowledge that I wasn't happy about them. Number three, in what ways did you limit yourself in 2018? And more importantly, how can you remove those limits in 2019? See, now that's where I think someone needs to get very specific, because without specificity of action on number three and some kind of accountability to make sure that it happens, again, they're just words. And if you're not aware of your patterns, you keep repeating the patterns. So it's important to get conscious about, especially when you keep saying you want something and you don't get it. And every year you keep saying, oh, I don't want it, I want it. And every year you don't get it. Well, why don't you get it? What is in the way? And again, that's one of the reasons why I've put on these events, why, Michael and Doug will both be at Releasing What Weighs You Down next week. Michael's going to be doing NLP and mantra meditations, and we're going to be rewriting that story, the story that keeps you stuck in that thing that you keep saying you want, but there's a reason why you keep blocking it from coming into your life. So number three, that was that question. Number four, what were your greatest wins, achievements, and accomplishments? Number five, how can you apply these insights and information to be more yourself than ever and make 2019 your most amazing year yet? And then number six, what, if any, would be a resolution or intention for 2019? So that was the practice that we did last night, but it's a practice you can do today. It's a practice you can do this weekend. You can re-listen to this episode. You can pause it and write down your answers to these questions. We were right before midnight, so we all crumpled up our papers after sharing it, and we threw it in the fireplace. We did a little spray. We did a little Palo Santo, and we welcomed in the new year with a big ding from my Tibetan bell, and we thanked 2018 for the lessons and said goodbye. So it was, again, and I haven't done it that formally every year, but it was nice to, again, to me, it's an important part of really acknowledging and appreciating and being able to step into the new with appreciation for the past and to not feel like, oh, well, it's just another day and what's going to happen now and here we go again and I have to go on a diet or whatever whatever thing you drag from year to year. So I think it's a great way to cleanse.
Let me add something. I think that if you're listening to this show and you're listening to it and it's July and you're thinking, well, I need to wait until 2020, going into 2020, you don't. Every day is a new beginning. You can use these questions to help you take action, as Michael said earlier nicely, is that without action, none of these things are possible. Look at this and say, okay, I'm now through with my week. What is going to happen next week? Let me review this current week using these same questions, just substitute last week for last year, and take action on the things that you want to do better. What are your intentions for the upcoming week? And you can do it every day if you wanted to. If your practice every day is to sit down with these 6 questions and answer, what can I do today better than I did yesterday, or what intention can I set today as opposed to yesterday, I think you'll find yourself on a good path.
I love what you're saying, Doug, and I want to just even add to that the challenge for a lot of us and why goals and resolutions, I think, a lot of times fail is because we start to get discouraged. We have a bad day or so, and we go, oh, this isn't going to work. And then we just hang it up. And I love what you're saying, Doug, is like, yeah, just look at yesterday, go, okay, yesterday, maybe it didn't work. What can I do differently today? And so it's a constant state of review and shift and review and shift. So I love that.
I also agree 100%. Thank you for bringing that up, Doug. And
You're welcome, JJ.
it's all right. It's hard for me to be like, okay, babe. Okay. So, but I also thought even it's a good monthly practice. It's a good monthly goal setting thing to do, if you will, or reflection. I hate the word goal, because again, it's that we miss, like I mentioned about the instant manifestation with the lemons. If we are not present, if we're not acknowledging the wins on a regular basis, if we're not seeing the alignment, if we're not looking for alignment, then we don't know when it happens, and it's not going to happen as much. And the more you practice recognizing this, the more it happens.
That's the crazy thing. As soon as you start to recognize the accomplishments, the instant manifestation of the thoughts that you have in your head, as soon as you see a win, you begin to look for what's the next thing that I can manifest. And then we have conversations like this now all the time about, oh, well, we just manifested that. And it is very true. The more you think about it, the more you become in alignment with the things that you want, the more that those things are attracted to you, the more of those things that are actually going to happen. So use this as a daily practice. Use this as a when you're doing mindfulness meditation and you're focused on your breath and you somehow get off track, which monkey brain tends to get you off track like every 2 seconds. If you come back to your breath, come back to what is that intention that I'm trying to accomplish? What are those things that I want out of life?
Yeah, it's kind of like going to the gym. It's your manifestation muscle that you're working out. You're exercising it, and when you do bring that attention to it and you start to notice it, it gets stronger.
Well, okay, let's bring up the exercise piece, right? So just like exercise, people say, great, I'm going to exercise. And we all know, if you don't know, I am a personal trainer. And I will tell you that most people, and myself included, I've had trainers in the past and accountability because we can say that we'll do it. And do you know how to do it? Well, I'm going to argue you probably really don't, but you think you know how to exercise and you're going to go out and you're going to do it for a certain amount of time until your habits and patterns set back in. So how do you transform that? How do you overcome that? Well, number one way that has been proven over and over again for people to succeed is to step outside their comfort zone and have some accountability. You normally got to pay for something because then you're committed to it because you work hard for your money and you want you want to prove yourself right. So you're going to work harder when you have some skin in the game. So let's talk about some of the ways, and I don't really care what you do, and I don't care that you do it. I wish you well, everyone listening, to make the best life you can, but ultimately it's up to you. No one's looking over your shoulder. I will not meet you most likely unless somehow you make it to an event of mine or you bump into me on the street. But even then, I'm not going to ask you if you're doing the practices. I'm not going to ask those questions. It's none of my business. But let's talk about some of the ways that you can get some accountability from an immersion. Obviously, if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, you understand that the immersion will be coming to next week's Releasing What Weighs You Down. And there are still tickets left. It's live in person in LA, and it will be the last one. It will be at least double the price, less people and less time next time around in a year from now, and I can't even tell you the location. So this is the last time to be in a community of true healing and transformation in a way that I promise you'll never have. I've got people who come to my events who've been to thousands of events. Melanie's testimonial was great from September. She's like, I go to a lot of events and there's something very unique and special about what I've created. So that is obviously the high-end way for you to have an immersion. I mean, really an immersion of I'm going to set this whole year up on a huge momentum and then keep it going. Now, on the lower side, I still have a few spots left for the Manifestation Mastermind, probably 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 spots at this moment in time. And that's $97 a month or $497 paid in full. But Michael and I have been brainstorming about another concept. And Michael, why don't you explain the Hive?
Okay, so I highly recommend anybody who is interested in this type of work, watch, if at all possible, the documentary, kind of like a documentary, called Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds. And as I was watching it, one of the things that it spurred in me was the fact that as a society, like Doug, you mentioning monkey mind. We think more and more and more. We're thinking so much more than we did as human beings 100 years ago. We've lost the fine art of doing nothing, of just laying in the grass and looking up at the clouds.
Dolce far niente.
Exactly.
Dolce far
exactly.
niente.
La dolce far niente. Exactly. And we've lost that. And what has transpired in that process is the more we lose it, the more it takes us away from the inner knowing and understanding that we are all connected. We are all part of one. And bees have this down. I mean, bees know this. They're of, you've probably heard the term hive mind, is that they are all resonating in the same energy and frequency, and they're all working towards what they are doing as a community of bees. And so I thought, what about creating this for us, for human beings who want to raise their vibrational frequency? How can we come together in a hive mind that raises our own energetic level and energetic level of the group, and ultimately can impact the energetic level of the planet?
Well, it only takes one person to be in alignment to be a more powerful force than millions who are out of alignment. So, we know that by having even just a few of us be in more of a higher frequency, it affects everybody. It changes the balance, and it does up the level of where people see as possible. And I think it's definitely making huge transformation. So how would this hive, what are you thinking about how people could get involved if they're interested? Definitely write to me. If you're listening to this podcast, come to jjflizanes.com and let me know if this hive idea is of interest to you. But talk a little bit more about how we would facilitate, how we would, what we would do, how people would get benefit from it.
Yeah. So we're definitely still in the formative stages as we develop the concept of it. But the idea behind it is to raise the individual's frequency, but also in raising this group frequency that we all then participate in and share the benefit of. And so one of the ways to do that, I think, would be of value to have at least one group meeting per month where we all come together into a space, and it would be virtual, so we could do it over a Zoom call, and we do a deep meditation together, and we practice raising our vibrational frequency. And so that could be a kickstart to someone really getting it. And then you go out and you take this practice into your life on your own, and you continue it. And then we do one call a month where we bring in an expert who works in some area. There's so many ways to raise our vibrational frequency. And so we would bring in an expert to help coach and train on a new particular modality that will raise that frequency. And so we rotate between just a group meditation and frequency raising exercise to then bring in expert training to build our own skill sets to grow that. And
some of the areas that Michael's referring to in terms of expertise, I would say we've talked about Tibetan bells in general, singing bells. Yep. And there's have you heard of Integratron? It's a Joshua tree. They do a meditation that's all the bell, the
singing bowls.
The singing bowls, right? It's called something. I'm trying to remember what it is, and I did it, and it's cool. But from that to foods, to essential oils, right, to different so the Palo Santo that I have, to movement, to right. So there's so many ways to raise our vibration and frequency, and kind of going over those different levels from things that are physical that you can do to things mental and emotional that you can do, and even spiritual. So let us know if you're interested in the hive. We're going to talk about a little bit more at Releasing What Weighs You Down. So if you get the virtual ticket, you'll hear more about that, and we're going to keep working on that and let you know when it's ready. And then lastly, I'll mention for those of you that are looking for weight loss, and it's still, again, that same thing over and over again. I am doing a free webinar on Thursday, June. I'm doing a webinar on Thursday, January 24th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And it is going to be about the 3 biggest myths about weight loss, and then a plan to actually achieve your goals. So come on over to jjflizanes.com/myths, MYTHS, and register for the webinar. If you can't make it live, we will have it recorded, but it's a chance for you to ask me questions live, direct.
Yeah, you don't want to miss that.
I don't want to miss that with the lisp. Okay, Michael. Anyway, so any final thoughts about resolutions, goal setting, intentions, energy, hives, community? I'll start with Doug.
I would just want to wish everybody a happy new year 2019 and take action. I think that is probably the best advice that I can offer is stop getting ready and start doing. Take action today. Yeah, and I would second that, and also just say, I wish you
peace. I mean, whatever it is, like JJ was saying, it's not even about how much we accumulate or what we do, but what is it that you really want to be, the way you want to be in the world with your life. More peace, more tranquility, more relaxation, more connectedness.
And I just want to remind you that you are the creator of your own reality and that you have the power to change anything. You can be, do, or have anything you desire. It's just learning, asking for help, and getting out of your own way. So enjoy 2019. Looking forward to communing with you more in one way, shape, or form. And this is JJ Flazanes. I'm signing off. Have a great 2019 and see you next week.